Meeting of the Lincoln Lancaster County Planning Commission of February 17th, 2016. A printed agenda is available outside the hearing room, and a copy of the full agenda, including the staff reports, is available at the front of the chambers with the clerk. The Open Meetings Act is posted just inside the doors at the back of the room. If you parked in the parking garage across the street to the north, be sure to pick up a parking coupon for free parking. They're right up here by David. Out of courtesy for those attending this meeting, commissioners and the staff, cellular phone usage is not permitted in these chambers during any portion of this meeting. We appreciate your cooperation. Please note the Planning Commission action today is final on item number 4.1D, Special Permit 15072. Any aggrieved person may appeal final action of the Planning Commission to the City Council or the County Board by filing a notice of appeal with the respective clerk within 14 days following the action of the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission action on all other items is a recommendation to the City Council or the County Board. First item of business is the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting held February 3rd, 2016. May I have a motion, please?
Move approval. Second.
Call the vote, Jerry.
Beecham,
Yes.
Cornelius,
Yes.
Core,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Lust,
Yes.
Sunderman,
Yes.
Weber,
Abstain.
Shear. Or I'm sorry, Shear's absent. Hove.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
The next item of business is the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda will be called at the same time and will not be scheduled for a separate public hearing unless there is a request from someone wishing to speak or at the request of a commission member. I'll ask Jerry to read all the consent agenda items into the record. Once those items are read, she will ask if there is anyone wishing to speak. If you wish to speak on an item on the consent agenda, we would ask that you stand and state that item. That item will then be removed from the consent agenda and scheduled as a separate public hearing under Section 3 of today's agenda. All items remaining on the consent agenda will be voted upon in total with a motion for approval. Jerry, will you please call the items on the consent agenda?
Yes, on the consent agenda, we have two text amendments. Item 1.1 is text amendment number 16001, amending chapter 27.59 of the Lincoln Municipal Code relating to airport zoning regulations to extend the approach zone from 3 miles to a new limit of 10 miles, establish the area included within the airport hazard area, revise existing definitions and add new definitions, and other changes to be in accordance with the passage of Nebraska Legislative Bill LB 140, and repealing section 27.59.010 through 27.59.040, 27.59.060 through 27.59.090, 27.59.110, 27.59.120, 27.59.140, and 27.59.150 of the Lincoln Municipal Code as hitherto existing. Item 1.2 is County Text Amendment number 16002, amending Article 18 of the Lancaster County zoning regulations relating to special height and use near airports to extend the approach zone from 3 miles to a new limit of 10 miles, establish the area included within the airport hazard area, revise existing definitions and new definitions, and other changes to be in accordance with the passage of Nebraska Legislative Bill LB 140, and repealing and adding various sections within Article 18 of the Lancaster County zoning regulations as hitherto existing. Are there any ex parte communications to be disclosed on these consent agenda items?
I see none.
Is there anyone here wishing to speak on either of these consent agenda items? If so, please stand and state that item.
Doesn't appear to be. I'd entertain a motion.
Move approval of the consent agenda.
Kathy?
Second. Cornelius?
Jerry, please call the vote.
Beecham,
Yes.
Cornelius,
Yes.
Core,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Lust,
Yes.
Sunderman,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Hove.
Yes.
Motion carried 8-0.
There are no requests for deferral, so we will now proceed to public hearings. The staff will make a brief presentation. The applicant will then be requested to present his or her testimony, followed by those who wish to testify in support, followed by those who wish to testify in opposition. The staff will then be given an opportunity to respond to the testimony, and then the applicant shall have an opportunity for rebuttal. Each person testifying should state their name and address and shall have 5 minutes to speak unless additional time is requested and granted. The timer will go off after 4 minutes, then you will have 1 minute to wrap up your testimony. The Planning Commission will vote immediately at the close of the public hearing unless the commission votes to defer action or continue the public hearing. Jerry, please call the first item, public hearing item.
Okay, there's 4 related items. I will call these all together and they will be, then I'll call the vote separately. Item 4.1A is Comprehensive Plan Amendment Number 15004 to amend the 2040 Lincoln Lancaster County Comprehensive Plan by changing the future land use plan designation from commercial, green space, and environmental resources to residential urban density, green space, and environmental resources on property generally located at Southwest 30th Street and West A Street. And, item 4.1B is annexation number 15014 to annex approximately 41.84 acres, more or less, on property generally located at Southwest 30th Street and West A Street. And I want to back up to item 4.1A. Staff recommendation on that comprehensive plan amendment is approval, and staff recommendation on the annexation is conditional approval. And item 4.1C is change of zone number 15036, requesting a change of zone from AGR Agricultural Residential District and AG Agriculture District to R4 Residential District on property generally located at Southwest 30th Street and West A Street. And item 4.1D is special permit number 15072 for a community unit plan consisting of 3 lots with up to 582 multi-family units with waivers to increase the building height from 35 feet to 40 feet and reduce the front yard setbacks adjacent to private roadways from 25 feet to 15 feet on property generally located at Southwest 30th Street and West A Street. And this is final action by the Planning Commission on the special permit.
Rachel?
Are there any ex parte communications to be disclosed?
I don't see any. Rachel?
Yes, so these applications are for an apartment complex at Southwest 30th and West A Street. Shown here, this is West A Street, and then Southwest 30th is located here. The uses are current on these properties are currently a tree farm. To the west and east are agricultural uses. And then to the north is Middle Creek, and to the south is an existing single-family housing development. This area is currently outside of the city limits, and it is designated as future commercial uses in the comprehensive plan. Shown here, these are the properties here. So they're currently designated as commercial, and to the west is residential. The lighter green is green space, and the darker green is environmental resources. And there's a comprehensive plan amendment that's part of this set of applications that would change the red commercial land use here from commercial to urban density residential. Just for some background, the environmental resources category essentially designates floodway and riparian corridors and things like that. And then the green space is generally open space for stormwater detention purposes. Switch to the site plan now. The applicant is requesting approval for up to 582 units, which is the maximum allowed in the R4 district within a CUP. However, they are only showing 432 units on their site plan currently. There will be 2 access points to West A Street from this development. There will be a permanent access point at Southwest 30th Street here, and then a temporary driveway access here to the west. And that temporary access would be removed at the point that this development connected through future development to the west via Rabbit Run Road here, south to West A Street. The applicant is requesting 2 waivers to the zoning ordinance. The first to increase the maximum height from 35 feet to 40 feet, and then reduce front yard setbacks along the 2 private roadways from 25 feet to 15 feet. There are also 2 waivers to design standards requested to allow sanitary sewer to run opposite street grades, and a waiver of the stormwater detention requirements. There are also a number of deviations to the access management policy requested. First of all, a reduced storage length for the right turn lane at the permanent access here at Southwest 30th. And then several waivers that relate to the temporary driveway, which are basically approved because they are temporary conditions. One of which is a waiver of the requirement to provide a right turn lane at the temporary access. And then they are also requesting a waiver of the requirement to provide a left turn lane at Southwest 30th Street. And at the time the staff report was published, there was not a decision made on that, but it has now been approved by Public Works, conditioned upon basically the timing of development to the west. So here on the site plan, we have lots 1 and 2 adjacent to West A Street, and then to the north, we have lot 3. And a large portion of lot 3 is within the floodplain currently, and they will be adding quite a bit of fill to raise these buildings out of the floodplain. And so in compensation for that, this area to the north within Outlot B is going to be designated as a permanent non-buildable conservation easement that's also going to include an area for compensatory storage to compensate for that fill that will be added. The general topography of the site generally slopes down towards Middle Creek as you go from south to north. And lots 1 and 2 are going to be able to connect via gravity to the existing sanitary sewer in West A Street. However, lot 3 is not able to connect via gravity and will require a sewer ejector pump, which will be privately owned and maintained. Just for some additional background, West A Street is currently a 2-lane asphalt road, and it's shown in the capital improvement program for construction of 2 permanent concrete lanes, as well as left and right turn lanes as appropriate, along with some intersection improvements. And then we had 2 motions to amend that are submitted for this application. The first motion to amend has a number of points, a couple of typo corrections in the staff report, as well as additions to the conditions of approval that relate to the fact that a couple of the deviations to the access management policy are conditionally approved by Public Works. And then we had a second motion to amend that was submitted by the applicant, related to note 16 on the site plan. Note 16 relates to the fact that the layout is conceptual and that variations will not require an administrative amendment. We requested that that note be removed and that amendment of the site plan just be based on how we normally do it, whether it's administrative amendment or full amendment. So we requested that that would be removed. but the applicant is requesting instead to modify that condition to state that the site layout is conceptual and that minor modifications are allowed without an administrative amendment. And we, the planning department, would prefer that that note not be included, just to stick with what our normal policy is in terms of whether something's major or minor, whether it would require a full amendment or not. We'd rather just not have any deviations to that normal policy. And we've had several neighbors submit comments on this project. They primarily related to concerns about traffic levels on West A Street. And we also received a letter from the West A Neighborhood Association that was primarily in support of the project, but also had some concerns about traffic on West A and other related infrastructure impacts. And we have someone here from Public Works today who can answer any traffic-related questions you might have.
Questions?
Rachel, I have just kind of a basic question. I know one of the things that we're being asked to approve is changing this from Tier 1 Priority C to Tier 1 Priority A. What does that accomplish as part of the development?
Well, basically, Tier 1 is our category for land that is appropriate for immediate annexation and development as part of the city. And typically, as part of Tier 1, all of the utilities are available on those sites. And we also have a Tier B, and then when you get to Tier C, which this is currently designated as, usually all utilities are not available. And in this case, we are adjusting it to Tier 1 partly because, all utilities are available here except for the sewer is not available via gravity for Lot 3. So with the addition of the private ejector pump, there's no reason that this site is not suitable for immediate development.
I also saw in the notes that all of the fill that will be required to get the lots out of the floodplain is supposed to come from the site of the construction. Just as a matter of policy, how is that monitored during development of the project?
I might let Ben from Watershed Management take that question if he would.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Ben Higgins with Public Works. That's a good question. I would assume, you could ask the applicant when they come up, but I assume that's what they do because, it's just gonna be a lot more cost effective for that. We don't normally track that. We did during Antelope Valley, and in fact, we made a stipulation for that, but that's not a normal practice, so.
Okay.
I'm not the answer you're looking for, I know.
Thank you.
Hey, Ben, while you're here,
Sure.
the environmental resources
Right.
designation that was there,
Yes.
was that to preserve a riparian area? Do you know why that was designated the way it was? And is
Right.
the new green space, going to still be sort of protecting that? Can you just talk about that a little bit?
That environmental resources there, if you saw that, a lot of that was centered along Middle Creek, and that'll still be there because that property doesn't go all the way to Middle Creek.
Okay.
But there is a little bit of that comes up one of those channels there, and that'll be preserved as a minimum corridor. And if you looked at that map, you could see there was a lot of, they kind of jerry meandered. I don't think that's a word, but
Meandered.
yeah, kind of meandered their boundaries of where they're putting the buildings, and that was to stay out of those minimum corridor areas there. And then
Okay.
if you notice where they didn't have any of the buildings, and all that area is going to be set aside as a conservation easement, and that can't be built out in the future. So.
Okay. And so that should take care of our concerns about the flood
Right.
and the water storage and
Right,
everything.
and we did have them submit like hydraulic runs for that, and so
Okay.
that's one thing we wanted to make sure we checked, that they didn't have any substantial increases in floodplain heights, and I think they had a .02 foot, but that's kind of allowable because the model, I mean, these are just one-dimensional models of the real world, so they're kind of bouncy. So, I mean, we usually accept anything below .05 feet. So.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
You as well. Would you mind giving us your take on the motion to amend by the applicant?
Okay, what was that
The
again?
2.4 on the deleting note 17. Does that play into your department at all?
What's the note say?
So it's talking about, Rachel, maybe you could show it. Do you have any concerns about that?
Well, I would go with planning on that. I mean, that's how they normally do business. I mean, you really want to leave it up, to me, I would think you'd want to leave up to planning to make a call on it if it's so minor it doesn't need anything or needs a, administrative amendment or a full amendment. I mean, otherwise it's up to the applicant to make that decision, and then if they make the wrong decision, then somebody's going to have to catch it. So I think doing business as normal would be the best thing.
And just to add to that, this one's kind of got a lot to it in terms of the sewer ejector pump and the floodplain and all the fill that's added, as well as the West A connections. So that's part of why we feel too that it should just keep with our standard policies.
Thank you.
Rachel, you said that this is getting approved for 582 units in the
Yes.
PUD, but they're only planning to build how many?
432.
430. So why the difference there, or do they plan on adding more, or?
They may, and that's kind of why they're requesting it. The 582 is just the maximum allowed normally in a community unit plan in the R4 districts. So they're just asking to reserve that so that if they have a few additional units they want to add, they don't have to come through with a full amendment on that piece again.
Would they'd have to access more land or buy more land to do that, I'd imagine, wouldn't they?
It's probably pretty likely, because the way their layout is set up now, it's probably relatively maxed out. But certainly if they wanted to add units such that they'd expand the boundary or increase the height or decrease setbacks, that would have to come through the process again.
Right, okay, thanks. Anything else?
Yeah, on the sewer ejector pump, I'm assuming that pumps it up to West A to join to the city sewer.
Yes, yep.
And what happens in times of loss of power?
That I do not know.
It doesn't work.
But the water
It's-
coming in still does.
It's possible the applicant can speak to that question.
Anything else? Thank you. Applicant?
Hi, I'm Marcia Kinning with Riga Engineering, and I'm here on behalf of Anderson Homes, Inc. 601 Old Cheney Road, Suite A, Lincoln, Nebraska, 68017. I know that you guys have lots of questions, and I wish I could remember all of them. But I think this might help. How does this work?
There it is.
Got it? You guys were asking about the lift station and where it was at. It's up in the far north corner, so that it could be actually connected to the sewer that's going to be going in the future along the north side. And then it follows along the west line of the property down to West A. If the power goes out, I would think that the apartment complex, it would be their responsibility to have a generator or a backup system to make it flow, and not work. So I hope that answers that question.
So the lift station's designed to be temporary, and once sewer is out there, it's not It's gonna be
not permanent.
decommissioned?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Um,
Could you explain a little bit about the reason for your motion to amend?
The reason why I requested it, and I kind of like to have it on the plan, is because building and safety are the ones that will flag to planning department if they believe we need to have an administrative amendment. If we don't have this note on our special permit, then any minor change, like we don't put in a parking stall where we say we're going to, or we move the dumpster location, or if we do any minor thing, it's gonna have an administrative amendment. So no matter what, this is gonna have to go back to planning department when we do a building permit. I kinda wanted to just get rid of that, because I understand that if we changed the building height, or if we change the all that stuff's gonna have to go back through a full amendment, but I didn't want to have minor items that wouldn't really affect anything, have to go back through and do an administrative amendment.
Marcia, can you tell us kind of what the timeline is for the project? I know it was talked about, having 2 phases for building or for constructing. Do you know when they're going to start, when anticipated finish is going to be?
Well, it kind of all depends. The owner is kind of open to either selling the property to someone else for them to develop it, or he may come forward and develop it. So if he does it himself, it's probably not going to be for a couple years before the first phase, which is lots 1 and 2, would even be ready to be lived in. And then it'd have to go from there. He's not sure.
So there's a possibility that, I know that the roads are scheduled for improvement, I think in 2018, 2019.
Correct.
There's a possibility that those could be improved before this is fully built out.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other questions? Anything else you have?
I have a question. I don't know if it's for you, but what does note 16 actually say? Because we're talking about deleting it or modifying it. What does it say on the site plan?
On the original?
Yeah.
There we go. Note number 16 says apartment layout is conceptual. Variations to the conceptual layout will not require an administrative amendment. So that kind of made it sound like we could move buildings around and driveways, and I know and understand why planning department doesn't want that. We've gone through quite a bit with this particular project, working pretty close with planning as well as Public Works to make sure that all of our grading and compensatory storage and floodplain requirements all are met. So I wouldn't want to keep that either.
Got it. Thank you.
Sure.
Anything else? Thank you. Is there anyone here wishing to testify in support of this item? Is there anyone here wishing to testify in opposition of this item? We got a couple of them. Go ahead. Please come up.
Mark Antonson, 1521 Southwest 30th Street, Lincoln, Nebraska 68522. Commission members, thank you for the opportunity to testify at this hearing. Understand it's my first time testifying, the first time I felt strongly enough about an issue to come before you, so please take it easy on me. I also want to thank Rachel quickly, because I sent her a long list of questions when I first got the notice, and I'm sure that she let out more than one deep sigh when receiving that email, but she has done her best to answer all of my questions thoroughly and professionally. I want to clarify, I'm not in opposition to this motion, but merely that I would ask the commission to approve it conditionally and tie it to the planned improvements for West A Street. As noted, there is a significant chance that the timing of the improvements to West A may or may not line up with this plan. I would just ask that this be conditionally improved in a way that those are tied together. I did read through all of the documents posted as well as the traffic survey, and I noted that while the traffic survey addressed the issue of flow and interruption, you know, how effectively traffic will flow, what it didn't address is the safety issue. As noted, West A Street at that area is temporary asphalt. It is in my opinion, poor condition, and I think that the added capacities that are being asked of that road would put it into an unsafe condition more so than it already is. I'm not against development in any way. I respect Mr. Anderson's property rights and his desire to improve that property. I just be asked that he be asked to wait until those improvements are completed before moving forward with development of that area. I'd like to ask if there's any questions from the commission.
Any questions?
I do have one.
Please.
Where does the temporary asphalt, and you may not know this, but where does the temporary asphalt begin as far as, you know?
Yes, I can answer this because I've driven it every day for about 10 years. The temporary asphalt begins shortly to the west of Coddington. That intersection was improved somewhat when Coddington was improved, and continues out until it turns to gravel shortly after the railroad tracks. West, I believe, which is, I believe, just west of Southwest 40th. I believe it is also temporary asphalt on the east side of Coddington as well. The area I'm most concerned about is the area between Southwest 27th and Southwest 30th. It crosses a drainage area that I believe was shown on the maps, and that area is in especially poor condition.
Thank you.
Other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to testify in opposition?
My name is Vicki Jenkins. I live at 3007 West Washington Street. I just bought the home there, and the reason why I'm opposing this is for the safety of the children, the traffic, and the property values. I am really, really worried about what it would do to our properties if we added all of those buildings across the street from West A. I have a really good view of West A and of West O as well, and of the interstate. I think the land is beautiful, but I'm really concerned with the traffic. Every morning I drop off my son like a half hour early before school starts because I can't get into traffic. It's heavily there. I see children riding bikes on West A Street, which is really dangerous because there is no shoulder. And then I'm just more concerned about all of that. And I wish I could have been here a lot earlier with all of these meetings. However, I just bought my home in June, and I'm just really concerned with the traffic. It is very heavy out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Jenkins? Thank you. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify in opposition? We have questions for staff?
I do have a couple.
I got one too.
Rachel?
And I'd like to hear from Public Works too, if they want to come on up.
Go ahead, Ken.
Is it typical on sewer pumps like that you don't have a provision for a generator if you lose power? And because we really don't know how long it's going to be before they hook on to permanent connections, do we?
The sewer line along Middle Creek is a future sewer line, and I think it's a number of years out from construction.
Randy Hoskins, Assistant City Engineer. I'd be very surprised if they did not have backup generators for that. They will have holding capacity for a certain amount of time in the event that should happen, but it would be pretty rare that they would not have a backup generator for that.
But we don't require that at this point.
Require it? No.
Yeah.
No, it would be obviously in their best interest to have that, to protect their own property.
Randy, can you talk about the traffic, the condition of the road? I can't remember if there are any sort of bike trails going east-west out there. Can you sort of address this whole area
Sure.
for us?
Sure. West A Street out there in this area is a county road, pretty standard county road. It's been there for a long time. As it stands right now, it is fairly well rutted. I think generally it's not that bad a shape, but it's pretty well rutted, and so when it rains out there, those ruts fill up with water and makes it a little less safe. Probably one of the biggest concerns we have, obviously, is the lack of any sidewalks or any pedestrian facilities, particularly to get children to the schools out there. And so that is one of the major reasons, I would say, that we have been trying to get West A Street into the capital improvement program so that we can get that constructed and get some sidewalks in out there for people to use.
And can you talk about the temporary asphalt versus regular and safety of it? I'm not super familiar with temporary asphalt and how it differs.
Yeah. I don't know that I'd call it temporary asphalt, but it's not.
Give me
it's
the
not
phrase.
It's not our standard
Okay.
concrete construction that we would normally use for an arterial street. Probably the big thing when we go out there and we rebuild A Street, right now it's just a 2-lane street. We will go in and build it as a 3-lane street. That center turn lane that we'll put through there obviously makes it much safer at each of the intersections, because then you don't have traffic stopping in the through lane, which is what you've got now. That probably creates the most of the safety concerns that they have. As was noted, we will require a right turn lane to be constructed as part of this project. That will help get those vehicles out of the through lane and provide some safety in that manner.
And what about shoulder or, sidewalk, something for you mentioned the kids and trying to get through there. Will there be those kinds of things as well in the plan for that?
When we come in and reconstruct it, yes, we will put sidewalks, most likely on both sides. That would be our typical standard, depending on what right-of-way is available and how we can do that. But yeah, that's our normal standard when we build a new street.
And what's the priority on it right now? I know it's always a big question, but do we have a ballpark of when this said, I think 17-18 is when it's slated for improvement?
Yes, it is shown in the current capital improvement program. With the bulk of the money being in fiscal year 18-19. We are showing it in the draft that we put together for the new CIP. We are continuing to show it there, fully funding it. And so I would say, yes, there is, at this point anyway, from Public Works aspect, we are looking at this as a priority.
Anything else?
Go ahead. Rachel, is there a way to combine your preferred version with regards to note 16 and the applicants? If you said something like the site layout is conceptual, administrative amendments will be required to revise the site plan, minor modifications are allowed without an administrative amendment? Would it be possible to kind of come to an agreement where we're pointing out that there's a limit to what will have to be flagged for an administrative amendment?
I think that we could probably come to an agreement on that. I mean, the most minor changes, like a parking stall here or there or something, they don't have to even do an administrative amendment for. Notably, so I think it's possible we could do something like that as long as we clarified exactly what was meant by a minor modification.
So is it maybe just a misunderstanding on what type of things Public Works, Building and Safety is going to flag for an administrative amendment? I mean,
It's-
because this is the first time this has ever really been an issue, and
Right.
I'm trying to figure out what the source of the concern is.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, from what Marcia was saying, it sounded like maybe she was concerned that the very smallest changes would require an administrative amendment, and that's not the case. Building and Safety will still issue permits if there's just a slight change.
And I assume Building and Safety is pretty good at determining what requires an administrative amendment compared to just a
Right.
site.
And I
Minor
think they
change.
do that all the time.
So moving a dumpster, do you know off the top of your head, does that require an administrative amendment? Any idea? Or does it, would it depend on where they want to put it? If building and safety has concerns, it's an amendment. If not,
No, moving a dumpster or moving a parking stall here or there is not going to require
Not
that.
going to require that? Okay.
Other questions?
Administrative amendment process, that doesn't mean it comes back through Planning Commission, it means David signs off on
Right.
it, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I do want to note, I guess, that in the staff report, it is mentioning that there's a future trail planned along South, 8th Street on the south side.
Yes.
So that could alleviate some of those children
Certainly. Yeah, that could address the
issues.
concerns.
Is it, I wanted to ask about this setback, and how they've cited the roads. Instead of in the middle, they've done it to the side. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. So the waiver on reducing the setbacks to private roadways, we have 2 private roadways within this development, Rabbit Run Road and then Southwest 30th. And there are a couple different ways to show private roadways, one of which is to locate them in an outlot, and the other is to simply show them without an outlot, and the center line of the street would be the meeting line of the 2 adjoining lots. So in this case, because they're placing them in an outlot, the setback is going to begin at the edge of the outlot versus the center line of the street. And that's the way we prefer to have them, is in an outlot. So based on that, they're requesting a reduced setback, since instead of being counted from the center line of the street, the setback will be counted from the edge of the outlot. And I think that's a waiver that we approve pretty often.
So really, it's not a decrease in any number of feet or yards or anything. It's just where you're starting the count from.
Right. And it's also important to note that those are internal to the development as opposed to the boundaries.
And I can't remember, I'm pretty sure the answer, but I'm pretty sure it's normal practice to have something like this ejector pump for the sewer, and to have the owner maintain and put that in and everything until they can connect to the city resources.
Yes. We have several situations like that across town.
Is there any bond or anything required for the maintenance or for the input or anything like that, in case something, more so for the maintenance?
I don't know. I don't know about that. There may be a bond required at time of final plat.
Steve Hendrickson of the Planning Department. Perhaps I can help clarify. This is a private injector pump for one lot owned by one party. And so we have these, often you even have them in a single family house. Your house, the basement bathroom can't quite get up to the sewer in the street, so you have an injector pump in the basement. It's your problem. It floods your bathroom in your basement if it goes wrong. So typically people will have backup power and all those type of things. So for an individual lot, which we have here, one pump, it's their responsibility. We have a separate policy that talks about an actual pump station that would serve multiple properties, maybe 400 or 500 acres. There, the concern of the city is much greater because you have multiple parties involved, and so in those circumstances, that is serving hundreds of acres. The city actually maintains it, And then the city has a crew that it helps have warning systems to know that there's been a malfunction, there's backup pumps even in those other circumstances. So that's when you're serving hundreds of properties, and in this case though, it's just a single injector pump for one property. So we leave it up to the individual to maintain it because as Randy said, it's in their best interest to have that operating all the time.
But this one is gonna be serving more than just one building, because, I mean, to me, it looks like there's quite a few apartment
It's
buildings
serving
on this
multiple
lot.
buildings, but it's all on one lot, one owner. So one owner will be controlling that because they own the apartment complex.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else for Rachel? Thank you. Anything applicant rebuttal?
I don't really have anything to rebut, but I just wanted to point out that our development that we're proposing is why West A improvements are kind of in the forefront of the city now. Before we came forward, it wasn't even on the books to begin for many more years. So it's kind of has the neighborhood in mind with improving West A.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Jerry, you want to call these separately?
Absolutely. Okay, item 4.1A is comprehensive plan amendment number 15004 to amend the 2040 Lincoln Lancaster County Comprehensive Plan by changing the future land use plan designation from commercial green space and environmental resources to residential urban density, green space, and environmental resources on property generally located at Southwest 30th Street and West A Street. Staff recommendation is for approval.
Entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion?
I'll make my comments now kind of about all of them. How about that? First of all, I would like to thank the applicant, wherever she is, there she is, very much for meeting with neighbors. That's always very important to me, and I think it really helps be a successful project. I would also like to thank the neighbors who took the time to come in and talk to us today. I know it's not always easy to get off work in the middle of the afternoon, and we do really appreciate your time. And those who sent in their comments, including the Neighborhood Association. I recognize that there are always some concerns when you've got some single-family housing and you're putting in apartment complexes. I think a plan like this is actually ideal in my mind because the apartments are going in first, and so folks know what's there, they know what to expect, and I like to see that. I am concerned about the traffic and about the pedestrian traffic. I think this is a useful and appropriate use of this space along West A. I definitely think that the improvements to the road need to be made very soon, as we can.
Others? I also plan to support this. I think that I understand the issues with the traffic and the roads there. Hopefully this will spur those improvements to be done sooner rather than later. Jerry, would you call the vote, please?
Okay, I just want to verify that I have Beecham moving for approval and Harris second.
Oh, Michael and I kind of jinxed, so whoever you want
Tracy.
to put down.
Oh, Tracy, okay. All right. Thank you. Okay, Beecham,
Yes.
Cornelius,
Yes.
Core,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Lust,
Yes.
Sunderman,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Hove.
Yes.
Motion carried, 8-0. Next item is item 4.1B, annexation number 15014 to annex approximately 41.84 acres, more or less, on property generally located at Southwest 30th Street and West A Street. Staff recommendation is for conditional approval.
Move approval.
Second, Cornelius.
Any other discussion? Jerry, please call the vote.
Beecham,
Yes.
Cornelius,
Yes.
Core,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Lust,
Yes.
Sunderman,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Hove.
Yes.
Motion carried, 8-0. Next item is item 4.1C, change of zone number 15036, requesting a change of zone from AGR Agricultural Residential District and AG Agriculture District to R4 Residential District on property generally located at Southwest 30th Street and West A Street. Staff recommendation is for approval.
Entertain-
Approval.
Second.
Any other discussion? Jerry?
Is that with the
That's on the
amendment?
next one.
That's the
That's
next
the
one.
next
Oh, sorry, okay, we got it.
Jerry, please call the vote.
Beecham,
Yes.
Cornelius,
Yes.
Core,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Lust,
Yes.
Sunderman,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Hove.
Yes.
Motion carried, 8-0. Okay, item 4.1D is special permit number 15072 for a community unit plan consisting of 3 lots with up to 582 multi-family units with waivers to increase building height from 35 feet to 40 feet and reduce the front yard setbacks adjacent to private roadways from 25 feet to 15 feet on property generally located at Southwest 30th Street and West A Street. This is final action by the Planning Commission unless appealed to the City Council.
Move approval as amended by staff, but not applicant.
Second. Kathy Beecham.
Discussion?
I think I understand where the applicant is coming from on their motion to amend, but I think as a practical matter, I don't see a reason to treat this particular development different than what our standard policy is, and I think it's maybe not that big a deal as maybe the applicant was led to believe, as I think building and safety is pretty good at knowing what's minor. And getting an administrative amendment, I don't think David's too far behind in his work. So I think we'll just leave it as the staff proposes.
Other discussion?
I would agree. I don't have a problem with sort of combining them and keeping some kind of comment in there that says minor modifications are allowed without an administrative amendment, but I think it's kind of implied anyway. And it will have the same effect, and the result will be the same. So I'm also inclined to go with the staff's recommendation.
Anything else? Yeah, I tend to agree. I think that the staff, having done this multiple times, knows what consideration minor items can be. So, Jerry, please call the vote.
Beecham,
Yes.
Cornelius,
Yes.
Core,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Lust,
Yes.
Sunderman,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Hove.
Yes.
Motion carried, 8-0.
At this time, anyone wishing to speak on an item not on the agenda may do so. We're adjourned.